This is my first 2026 Dynasty rookie mock draft on our channel. I am very excited to dive in. And look, I know I have been, Mr. Downer on this class, but I do think there is still some potential at some certain spots. Let's start with the 101 for me right now in this class. Nope, not Arch Manning. For me, that is going to be Mr. Jeremiah Love. I mean, he was so incredibly good last year for Notre Dame. He was one of the important pieces, one of the important reasons that this team made it all the way to the national championship. And don't judge him based off what he did in the playoffs because he was injured, but he had an incredible season, over 1,100 rushing yards, almost 7 yards per attempt, which was 7th best in the nation, 17 rushing touchdowns, the 5th best PFF run grade, yards after contact per attempt, 4.39, a great number. He had the most missed tackles forced per attempt of any running back that I scouted. By far, also the highest missed tackles forced per attempt at 0.38, which, by the way, is the same number that Ashton Jeanty just had in 2024 when we looked at our limits to lemonade team. Had a great breakaway percentage, good receiver through the air as well, and he's only going to get better and better and better. If I had to rank him in the 2025 class, he would be right there amongst the Travion Hendersons and the Quinshon Judkins as a prospect, but he has a ceiling that he could reach that might be higher than those guys here in 2025 as a collegiate player. At my 102, we are now going to take off the board the prodigy. All right, Mr. Lazan Al-Gaib. Did I say that right? I don't know. But Arch Manning. All right, Arch Manning, the potential chosen one. Now, you got to keep in mind, guys, that there should be an asterisk next to Arch Manning's name because there is a chance he might not even declare for the NFL draft next year. I mean, he has another couple years of eligibility, but we are going to go ahead and take Arch Manning. Remember, he was a top-ranked recruit, pretty much the highest-ranked recruit in the last decade for any player coming out of high school, commits to Texas, sits a little while behind Quinn Ewers, had a little bit of opportunities. He didn't really get much opportunity here so far in his young career, but the little chances that he's had, he's looked very, very good, very promising. About 68% of his passes completed, 10.4 yards per attempt, so he's not afraid to kind of throw the ball down the field. Only 2 interceptions, 81 PFF grade, 6.4% big-time throw percentage, which is actually the highest of any quarterback that I charted in the 2026 class. Low turnover-worthy play percentage, #1 NFL passer rating of any quarterback in this class and any quarterback in college football last year. And he also had that rushing appeal. So there definitely could be something cooking with Mr. Arch Manning, but he still has big shoes to fill with this kind of aura that he brings with the last name Manning. At the 103, we're going to grab Lenoris Sellers. I don't think that is crazy to say that Lenoris Sellers might even have a higher upside than Arch Manning does. Truly, when we think about the top scoring players in fantasy football, the type of builds that we're looking for, the Josh Allens of the world, these Cam Newton type of projects, profiles, the Anthony Richardsons, we know how much we loved his upside. He kind of has that build. He is 6'3", 242 pounds. In his first year as a starter, he was very, very good for the South Carolina team. About 65% of his passes completed, decent yards per attempt, only 18 passing touchdowns. But where he kind of goes crazy is that rushing upside. He had 852 rushing yards last year. That was second highest of any quarterback that we charted. And you got to keep in mind that college football takes away rushing yards when you get sacked. So in reality, he had well over 1,000 rushing yards on the totality of the season. I mean, if you look at all of the quarterbacks returning to college football, he is top 3 in deep completion percentage. It's him, Drew Aller, and another guy from Baylor. So we know he can throw the ball down the field. Can he improve that, intermediate accuracy? Again, I'm starting to think about Anthony Richardson again, but he has ridiculous rushing upside. We already talked about his 852 rushing yards last year. But for example, in week 3, he hit just under 21 miles per hour on a rush, a 75-yard rushing touchdown. This is according to Real Analytics. Absolutely ridiculous. He has that true Anthony Richardson, Cam Newton, Josh Allen type of body. Doesn't mean he's going to turn into that player, but man, I think NFL teams are going to salivate if he has another stepping stone here in his second starting season. All right, right after that, we are going to go to the 104, and we're going to take a running back, Nicholas Singleton. All right, Nick Singleton was not a running back that I had in my top 5 in the 2025 class. Then he comes back to college at Penn State. And, you know, a couple years ago, I would have probably had like a ding on him for that, because there is kind of this belief that you want a running back as young as possible. But the reality is, Travion Henderson came back for his senior season. He was a top 50 pick. RJ Harvey was 24 years old and was drafted as a second-round pick. I don't think we should have any concern whatsoever for him coming back to Penn State at this point, with the NIL being the way that it is. But he had a very underrated season. Over 1,100 rushing yards, 6.4 yards per attempt, 12 rushing touchdowns. But where he is a true difference maker is as a receiver. He had 231 snaps where he ran a receiving route. He had 41 receptions, 375 receiving yards. That is the most of any running back that I charted in the 2025 season. And he actually went off in the postseason, in the playoff, in the conference championship for the Penn State Nittany Lions. If you look at his regular season numbers compared to the postseason, a lot of people shrink in that postseason, in that playoff, but he rose to the occasion from 6.1 yards per attempt to 7.2, from about 70 rushing yards per game to about 92. He was absolutely incredible on the stage, the biggest stage that he possibly could, right? Right after him, we are going to go another quarterback, his teammate here at the 105, Mr. Drew Allar. Similar to Lenora Sellers, who we talked about earlier. This is the type of player that just, there is no ceiling. Like, the ceiling does not exist for a Drew Allar, right? One of my favorite draft analysts in the industry, Dane Brugler, he had this to say. He said, if Drew Allar would have declared for the 2025 class, he probably would have been the number 2 pick to the Cleveland Browns. That's how much the NFL loves this man's skill set, right? He has all of the intangibles. He has all the God-given gifts. At 6'5", 238 pounds, he had a pretty decent season as well. You know, 66% of his passes completed, over 3,300 passing yards, 6.4 yards per attempt, you know, decent amount of rushing yards with over 400, you know, decent turnover-worthy play percentage, but he hasn't really had that signature season where he's put it all together. But man, I think we could be brewing on that here in the 2025 season. All right, right after that, we are going to take our first wide receiver off the board at the 106. That is Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. The reality is, if you have looked into the 26 class at all, the wide receiver room looks very weak. It's probably the weakest a wide receiver room has looked 1 year out since I started doing this, okay? And Jordan Tyson is really the one name who has any sort of production that you can point to as a sign of what's to come. He had 75 receptions, which was tied for first in this class about the players that I charted. Let me be very, very clear. He had almost 1,100 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns, pretty decent PFF grade, 15th amongst the nation, a high yards per route run, the highest of any wide receiver that we are charting here. And over a 3 yards per route run is very impressive. 66% contested catch rate. He caught 10 out of 15 contested catches. So there is certainly, you know, this nice core of a season that he can continually build around. He had a ridiculously high yards per route run versus man coverage. You can see, shout out to Jack Brentenall. He had a 4.55. Again, a man yards per route run, excuse me. He's a great route runner. He's shown that. I like his body at 6'1", 195. I know that sounds weird, but I think he has a prototypical X body that we're looking for right now in the NFL. You don't have to be 6'4", but right around that 6 foot, 195 pounds, he can beat man with ease. I think he has a chance to be the one standalone wide receiver in this class. The more I dive in, that really excites me. All right. Right after that, though, we are going to double down on receiver, and we're going to go to Antonio Williams out of Clemson, excuse me. He tied Jordan Tyson for 75 receptions in this class, had over 900 receiving yards, pretty decent year, 11 touchdowns. He is more of your intermediate game. You know, he can play inside, outside at 5'11", 190 pounds, but he is a guy that's just a consistent producer, 58% contested catch percentage at 11 out of 19 contested catches. He had a 0.14 missed tackles forced per target, which was very enticing for me. In that Yak game, you can see him doing more with the ball in his hands. I think he's a nice, consistent producer, but he certainly isn't like a Tet McMillan 1 year out, a Luther Burden even 1 year out. I just don't know that the wide receiver 2 is as strong it's pretty weak is what I'm trying to say. All right. If you want an in-depth breakdown of your team with customized trade targets, players to buy, sell, hold, then get your team playbook today by either becoming a yearly Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAND or by going directly to the Flock store, regardless of what promo code you're on. And if you want it done live, make sure you get the live tier. Those links are in the pinned comment. Right after that, at the 108, we're going to make a call and we're going to kind of, put our stamp on a player that we think can break out. That is Dante Moore out of Oregon. Now, you may have heard of Dante Moore before, right? Former 5-star recruit. In fact, if you remember back in Arch Manning's class, Dante Moore was another 5-star recruit quarterback in that class. He was right behind Arch and Nico. He went to UCLA, didn't really play much. Then he transferred to Oregon last year, sat behind Dylan Gabriel. He has a ton of experience sitting behind someone in a good offense, but he has an incredible offense around him with the transfers that Oregon brought in, the offensive line, the offense that they run there. Dante Moore reminds me a ton of CJ Stroud coming out of high school. I could definitely see him being one of the breakouts of the 2025 season. And in Superflex formats, we like that a lot. All right, at the 109, look, in a class that sucks at wide receiver, you can't go wrong with an Ohio State wide receiver. We're going Carnell Tate. So if you look at Carnell Tate's production and his analytics, nothing is going to impress you. It's not only 4 touchdowns, 52 receptions, right? Nothing is going to impress you point blank period. But the reality is you have to keep in mind that Carnell Tate was playing amongst Marvin Harrison, Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka. He never really has had a chance to break out because he just isn't the same level of player as those guys. Otherwise, he would have been targeted the way they were, like we saw Jeremiah Smith do as a freshman, right? But he is still a very good player, and he has a chance to be the number 1 at Ohio State in 2025. All right, to end the first round, we're going to do a run of running backs, starting off with Le'Veon Moss. This is one of those players where I truly don't understand why there isn't more excitement from the Devy community maybe on a name like Le'Veon Moss. He had 765 rushing yards. Okay, that's not going to blow you away, but he didn't play the entirety of the season because he went down with an injury. He probably would have declared in the 25 class, but came back because that injury really hurt his season. But 6.3 yards per attempt in the SEC, are you kidding me? 10 rushing and touchdowns on a shortened season. If you look at yards after contact per attempt, he led all of the running backs that I was able to scout in that category. Incredible numbers here and a really solid foundation, an impressive season for an SEC running back. At the 111, we're going to talk about Justice Haynes. Now, unfortunately, Justice Haynes has really never broken out yet, let's say. Okay, like if you look at his analytics last year at Alabama, nothing was really impressive, but we also have to keep in mind that the rushing game in general at Alabama really took a dip when Nick Saban left overall, especially with Jalen Milroe as a quarterback. There was just not a lot of reasons to not stack the box, let's say that. But Justice Haynes transferred from Alabama to Michigan. He was the number 1 ranked running back in the transfer portal last year, so he will be the starter for the Michigan Wolverines. He was the 3rd best running back recruit out of his class, and I think he has a ton of upside. We just have to wait and see that upside unfold. Right after that, to finish the first round, another guy that was a highly touted recruit, C.J. Baxter. Now, C.J. Baxter's deal is that he just couldn't stay healthy so far in his career, right? I mean, we're talking about a 5-star recruit, number 1 running back out of his high school class, right? Committed to Texas and just hasn't stayed healthy. This was supposed to be the next Bijan Robinson, but the man just couldn't stay healthy. I mean, people were comparing him to Joe Mixon. So if he can stay healthy and just, stay on the field, I think he could put up some massive numbers at 6'1", 220 pounds. Massive body on this guy. Pause. Okay, I get it. All right, round 2. Let's get into round number 2. At the 201, we're going to take a my guy receiver, if you will. I am really starting to fall in love with as a sleeper, Makai Lemon out of USC, constantly moving the chains. Shout out to Jack Brentonall, by the way, who has a lot of great information on his ex. If you look at 2026 wide receivers, this class, if you look at first downs per route, Makai Lemon was 2nd at 0.13, right behind Jordan Tyson, the consensus wide receiver 1 in this class. Again, a chain mover. I really like his game. He had the 12th highest PFF grade. In fact, the highest F grade of any wide receiver that we charted. Had a 77.6 reception percentage, decent yak number at 7.3, 2nd of any wide receiver that we charted. Had a 3.03 yards per route run, which was only behind Jordan Tyson in the 2024 season. has very reliable hands, just a 1.9% drop rate. You'll see that at the bottom here. The best of anyone in this class, had a decent contested catch percentage, but more importantly, this man is doing more after the catch than any wide receiver in this class. 0.19 missed tackles forced per target for Mekhi Lemon, number one in the class of anyone we scouted, electric in the open field. I think he is a game-changing player that could take the next step here in 2025. Right after that, let's add a big body name to the list. How about Denzel Boston, who we have been looking into a little bit more as we're learning about the class. He's out of Washington, maybe a little bit under the radar, but I do like his game a lot. When you look at a name like Denzel Boston, by the way, we're talking about a big body here, okay? We're talking 6'4", 209 pounds. Had about 830 yards, 9 touchdowns, nice PFF grade, decent contested catch percentage. Looks like a really nice outside wide receiver, another chain mover. He was right behind Jordan Tyson and Mekhi Lemon in first downs per route. So I do think he has a lot of upside in that Washington offense here in 2025. Don't be surprised if he's a sneaky riser in a system, by the way, in a college that is constantly, kind of churning out wide receiver talent. So we keep seeing that with Washington. All right, right after them, we're going to go back to the quarterback well. Cade Klubnik at the 203. Cade Klubnik, this is what you want to see from a highly touted recruit. If they don't start off their career well, do they continually progress as they go throughout their collegiate career? And that is exactly what Cade Klubnik has done every single season. Shout out to Garrett, 4th and Saturday over there on X. He shows you exactly. In 2023 to 2024, you can see over 1,100 more passing yards from one year to the next. His passing touchdowns went from 19 to 36. He was tied first in the nation last year in passing touchdowns. He goes from 8 interceptions down to 6, and he went from a 54.8 QBR to a 79.1. The man is developing right in front of our eyes. Former 5-star recruit, finally living up to the name. He is one of the more polished quarterbacks in this class, and we know that quarterbacks who have experience typically succeed from day one in the NFL, and that is what Cade Klubnik has in strides, and you can see that experience specifically when you look at the pressure grade. So this is something that PFF does. Basically, when you're under pressure, what is your grade? How are you performing? Are you able to remain calm, collective, and poised in the pocket? And Cade Klubnik was really the only quarterback in this class so far that was able to produce and look great under pressure. That definitely stands out for his profile. Right behind him, we have another quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, who, to be honest, Garrett Nussmeier, halfway through the 2024 collegiate season, people thought Garrett Nussmeier was going to be a first-round pick. That's how good he was looking to start the 2024 year, but had over 4,000 passing yards, highest of any quarterback in the class last year, 29 passing touchdowns, decent PFF grade, could definitely work on the turnover-worthy play percentage, nice deep ball, but still some growth to do. The good news for Garrett Nussmeier is that LSU did bring in a couple receivers through the transfer portal, so he should have plenty of opportunities to put up a huge year should it be in his profile, right? All right, the next thing we're going to do here at the 205 is go to a running back. That is Quentin Joyner out of Texas Tech. Now, Quentin Joyner didn't have much production last year, but transferred from USC to Texas Tech. He will take over for Taj Brooks as this team starter. In that CJ Baxter year, the Jeremiah Love year, you can see Quentin Joyner was actually the 4th highest graded running back coming out of high school. He has had limited opportunities, but he has looked great, averaging over 7 yards per attempt in his career so far. Great efficiency, good receiving work through the air. He looks like a nice player who just needs another opportunity to shine, and that could be at Texas Tech. Right after him, another running back's coming off the board here, Mekhi Hughes, who actually transferred from Tulane to Oregon. So he is going to join our Dante Moore, our Evan Stewart. That could be a very nasty offense over in Oregon. But this man, Mekhi Hughes, man, he just put up numbers in 2024. Had the most rushing yards of any running back that I charted, over 1,400, 15 rushing touchdowns, top 10 PFF grade in the class last year, 61 missed tackles forced, right behind Jeremiah Love. So he was putting up numbers. He was efficient. He was extending plays. I can't wait to see what he will do in that Oregon offense. And right after him, we have Evan Stewart. Let's be transparent about Evan Stewart. He was a 5-star recruit. He came out of high school with comps to Devonta Smith, and he has not lived up to it whatsoever. But the talent is still there, and the hope is that with another year of development, he can be the guy for Oregon and show NFL teams that he can produce at the next level. Right after that, at the 208, we have Sam Leavitt out of Arizona State. Sam had a pretty good year here in 2024, over 2,800 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, a high PFF passing grade. He took care of the ball more than any other quarterback in this class, really. 1.1% turnover worthy play percentage. He was very, very good at taking care of the ball. I still think there is some development to be had with him, as is every quarterback in this class, but he has a nice little floor to build off of, right? And there's definitely some hype with the whole Leavitt and Tyson connection at Arizona State. Blake Neiman actually reported that, Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson, according to 24 sports analyst B. Crawford, are the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the country entering the season. Last year, you heard that a lot about, Tet McMillan and his teammate Noah Fafita. So we'll see if they can both live up to it, because only Tet McMillan lived up to that 1 year out. Right after that, we have another running back here in Darius Taylor. Now, I'll be 100% transparent with you. Darius Taylor, his numbers as a rusher, very mediocre. Okay, very mediocre. Only 4.8 yards per carry there out of Minnesota, but he had 10 rushing touchdowns. The reason we are excited about Darius Taylor is because of what he does through the air. He led all running backs I charted in receptions. He was second in receiving yards and ran the most routes of any running back in this class. At the 210, we have a wide receiver. His name is Eric Singleton. Now, Eric Singleton, again, not really going to impress you from a production perspective. 700 receiving yards, only 3 touchdowns. But you have to keep in mind that he just transferred from Georgia Tech to Auburn. Georgia Tech, if you know anything about their offense historically, they are not producing top-end wide receivers. They're just not doing that on a year-to-year basis. I can't think of the last receiver out of Georgia Tech that mattered outside of like Calvin Johnson. They are typically a run-focused offense. So now he gets to go to Auburn, play in a better offense, play in the SEC. I'm excited to see what he can do. Number 1 ranked wide receiver in the transfer portal this year. Right after that, we have Eugene Wilson out of Florida. I like Eugene Wilson a lot. The issue is he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Had a great freshman year. Sophomore year, dealt with some injuries, but I think he can be a true sneaky breakout in 2025. And the last player we'll talk about here, you've probably been waiting on it, Nico Iamaleava. I don't know. I'm going to say it wrong, okay? I know his name. I can't say it. All right, whatever. Judge me in the comment section. Now, he has dropped drastically for me when I released my 26 rankings to now my first rookie mock draft. And the reason is there's just a lot of chaos. I mean, there really is a lot of chaos around his name. He has a great body at 6'6", 215 pounds. I mean, ideal, prototypical, built in a lab type of quarterback. He was a great recruit. He and Arch Manning were 1A and 1B in their high school class coming out. Obviously, one went to Texas, one went to Tennessee. I mean, look, Nico had a pretty solid season in 2024. I mean, if you look at Nico's numbers, over 2,600 passing yards, but he took care of the ball. 2.5 turnover-worthy play percentage, only 5 interceptions, high PFF passing grade. He was a decent player, some rushing upside. But here's what happened in the offseason. He basically did like a holdout. You know how NFL players do that because they want more money or a better contract? He basically did that, but for his NIL deal. So we had a college player who's already getting paid millions that was missing practices, meetings, just because he wanted more money on his NIL deal. We have never seen this in college football ever. And it does make me ask, how will the NFL view that moving forward? Will it matter? It probably won't if he goes out and balls in 2025. He did transfer from Tennessee to UCLA, but get this, he actually took a pay cut to do so because pretty much the entirety of college football boycotted it. It was just a really weird situation. And I wish him the best, but it certainly isn't a good look. All right, well, that is my top 24, my first 2 rounds. You can look at my All-Snubs list here now if you want to take a geese. I do like all these players. The reality is, if you look at my first 2 rounds, there are a lot of quarterbacks, all right? We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere around 8 to 9 quarterbacks in my first 2 rounds. If this class is going to have life, it's going to have to come through the quarterback position. We're going to have an Arch Manning breakout and declare, a Lenora Sellers building on his second year, Drew Aller putting everything together, Dante Moore breakout, Cade Klubnik continuing to build on what he's done, Garrett Nussmeier, Sam Levitt, Nico. We're going to have all these guys really break out and kind of put themselves on the NFL stage. It is possible. That will definitely help this class, but it certainly isn't a guarantee. But I appreciate you guys watching the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like the button, subscribe. Hit the like button and subscribe. Help me. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Nothing but love. If you're thinking about supporting us in this economy, that's big love, and you deserve love in return. So for every yearly Mother Flocker member who uses the promo code LAND, we're giving out a free team playbook, our 2025 rookie report, access to all premium tools, free site vouchers, and of course, a huge thank you from the LAND crew. You're far too kind. That's love.